WLPP Local Planning Panel meeting of the 8th of December 2021. On behalf of the panel, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet in the Waverley local government area and recognise the ongoing Aboriginal traditional custodianship of the land which forms this area, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to introduce the panel members we have today. We have two experts, Peter Brennan, you may see there. You might want to give a wave there, yep. Peter. And Sharon Veal, our heritage expert. And we also have our community representative, Alison Small. Thanks, Alison. And I am the chair for this meeting, and my name is Helen Lockhead. For your information, the public meeting is to be recorded and is being live streamed on YouTube. Today we have a pretty big agenda with 12 items. So each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the panel, and then an alarm will sound. So just keep your ear open for that. Please wrap up once the alarm is sounded, as we have a number of speakers to get through today. And please remain on mute unless you've been called to speak or unless you are speaking. We haven't had any apologies. And at this time, I'm just going to ask, do any of the members of the panel have a conflict of interest that they need to declare?
No, Madam Chair.
Alison?
Yeah, I do on 50 Gilbert Street.
Okay, thank you.
And Helen, sorry, I do on Diamond Bay Reserve.
Okay, thank you. We'll note that duly. Thanks very much. In terms of site inspections, in accordance with the panel's operation procedures, the panel members have either inspected the site themselves within the COVID restrictions, either in person or have done so via a VSO inspection. So a reminder to the registered speakers, the panel have been provided with all the submissions, and they have read through those submissions. So please do not repeat what is in your submission, but please try to focus on the relevant planning considerations of concern associated with your application, which you feel may not have been addressed. At the conclusion of the meeting, we'll consider each application, and the determination will be on the council's website as soon as possible. So without any further ado, I'm going to start with the first item on the agenda, and that is DA 188/2021 1, and it's for 113 Mcclellan Street. So I think our first registered speaker, I'm having a bit of trouble with my document here, scrolling down. Just bear with me for a moment. My document's frozen. Hold on. Okay. The first registered speaker we have is Robert Mcclellan. Is Robert there? Yes, I can see Robert. Robert, would you like to address the panel with your concerns, and remember to keep it concise and to 3 minutes maximum. Oh, you're on mute, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk on this submission. I have concerns with it because it's built at the front of an architecturally significant building that the community's fought long and hard to achieve on Mcclellan Street. It will infill part of that and change the style of it significantly. In addition to that, it'll generate more traffic, and already with Woolworths, a lot of extra traffic has actually come in that double parks across people's driveways, parks in no standing things in order to get in, get their materials. And another issue is there'll be a lot more people and dogs parked outside in the queues on the street. So I think that another coffee shop when we have 5 nearby is quite a big ask. And in addition to that, there are empty shops nearby. So I feel very strongly that this submission should be rejected. Thank you.
Robert. You know that the recommendation is for refusal.
And I support that.
Yes, okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, there's no one registered to speak on behalf of the applicant. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. All right, well, then we will just note that comment from the objector and the submissions we've received in writing, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is 30 Yanko Avenue, Bronte, and it's a review of a refusal, and the DA is DA 328/2020/1. And the first registered speaker we had no objectors registered, and we have Jenny Askin to speak on behalf of the opponent or the applicant. Is Jenny there?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yep.
Okay. I'll try to be very brief. So thank you for the opportunity to address you. The application that's before you today has been modified to address the original reasons for refusal in consultation with Council, and we welcome the recommendation of the report. In addition, we raise no concerns with the conditions as they've been recommended, and in particular with regard to condition 2, we will consult with Council regarding the external finishes prior to a CC being issued. As set out in the report, the FSR is now compliant, and the design of the first floor will not affect the setting of the adjoining heritage item. The height non-compliance is largely as a consequence of the drop in the ground level due to the lower ground floor. And we have demonstrated in the clause 4.6 that there are sufficient environmental planning grounds to justify the variation. And Council has concurred with this. In terms of privacy, we have addressed the previous concerns with the deletion of the addition to the deck at the rear and at ground floor level, and also by setting in the rear bedrooms at first floor level and reducing the width of that balcony to the rear. In terms of the design, this has been reviewed by Council's Heritage Officer, who has confirmed that the first floor is a cohesive addition to the existing dwelling. And as mentioned, we'll work with Council in terms of ensuring that cohesive materials are used with the first floor addition. On this basis, we believe we have addressed all the reasons for refusal, and we welcome the endorsement of the recommendation by the panel. I'm happy to answer any questions that the panel may have.
Are there any questions from the panel?
No, Madam Chair.
I don't have any.
No, none for me.
And I don't have any either. So thank you very much, Jenny.
Okay,
So thank you.
thank you.
We might just move straight on to the next application, which is at 157 to 159 Military Road, Dover Heights. It's a modification, including reduction of number of units from 6 to 3. And the DA is 316/2015/D. We have one objector registered to speak, Wayne Black. Is Wayne available to speak?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Wayne. If you can limit your
Thank you.
time to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. We, on behalf of my clients, we lodged objections to this latest amended application. It's been going on since 2015. We had issues with the height, the FSR and the GFA, the number of retail business suites being increased from 1 to 2, and some reduction in car parking within the confines of the building at the ground floor level to cater for an extra shop. Now, we can see that, you know, there's been a number of applications since 2015 that have encompassed a number of minor increases along the way, And now we find that this latest set of amendments actually brings a GFA to an increase of 1.39 to 1. We would suggest that if this was a new DA, would an allowable FSR variation of 1.39 be allowable, where it would be normally 1 to 1? This has an effect on a reduction in car spaces within the property, and therefore exacerbates an already a problem with parking out on the street. We see no reason why it can't be provided on the site. If they want to have additional floor space, that's fine, but why should it be at the expense of additional cars on the street when there is perfect opportunity to do it? So look, on behalf of my clients, we would like this reviewed and see if there's some way that it can be reduced so that there's less impact on the parking issues that are already prevalent. And we would like it to look at in terms of the amount of creep that's happened over the years. And now we're at a situation where there's a massive overrun on FSR. Some of the other issues we have no major drama with, the increase in height, but also there's a reduction in the deep soil landscaped area. Now, you know, it would be in the interest of the community to not allow these creepy things to keep being exacerbated so that we end up with compliance. So on behalf of my client, that's our objection.
Thank you, Wayne. That was quite succinct and understood. Are there any questions from the panel?
I don't have any.
No, not from me.
Okay. On behalf of the applicant, we've got Matthew O'Donnell registered to speak. Matthew, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Chair. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Are you in the car?
I am. I'm not driving though, don't worry.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's just there's a lot of faces on the screen. So I just want to make sure I'm looking at
That's
the right.
all right.
Did you hear the, I mean, you've seen the submissions and
Yes.
you've heard the objector from the neighbour.
Yeah, look, I didn't really have any real intention to address the panel other than to say that we endorse the council's recommendation. Probably just touching on the previous speaker's issues that there's been multiple modifications. To put it into context, my client only recently purchased this property off the previous owner who'd undertaken a number of modifications. Subsequently, this modification has come about to reduce the number of apartments. The issue so the issues to parking, there's obviously going to be less parking demand as a result of reduced apartments. In addition to that, the issue around the FSR GFA increase, we're not seeking to increase the overall envelope of the building. The increase has come about by reconfiguration of the apartments and what would have possibly been previously foyer spaces and things like that that wouldn't have been included. They're now kind of crept in that respect. And the other thing is in terms of the lobby as well, we're essentially infilling what was an open void previously, and that's obviously gone to additional GFA. And so that's kind of the crux of the increase. I believe I'm obviously available to answer any questions from the panel, and I believe the architects are also on this, should there be any design questions that could be put to them as well. Okay.
Are there any questions of Matthew? Anna? No?
No, I don't have any.
All right. I think we've got enough information, so thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your time. Cheers.
The next application we have before us is for 50 Gilbert Street, Dover Heights. a demolition of existing dual occupancy and construction of a 3-story dual occupancy with integrated parking.
Oh, I need to leave.
And sorry, who's speaking? Alison, you're on mute. Oh, yes, you need to leave. Yes, okay. So Alison declared a conflict on this one, so she's removing herself from the panel deliberate discussion at this time. And she'll return afterwards. The DA number is 289/2021. So we have no objectors speaking, but we have Pooja Deshpande registered to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Firstly, thank you so much for your time, for having me here. We have worked on several modifications in consultation with Council, and we have received the conditions of consent recently. We generally do not have any issues with the conditions of consent, except for one, which is a general modification, which is condition number 2B. The history of this condition is that there is a council asset, a stormwater pipe that runs underground, and there is an easement area which has been, there's an easement in this area. However, we do not, the condition says that we cannot have any permanent fixtures in that area, in the setback. However, we have a staircase that leads to the rear of the building and an eaves and an awning, which is at about 3 meters high. So according to the conditions of consent that have been issued to us, condition number 46 says that we have a creation of deed indemnity, which is why I question or I request council to relook at the condition 2B, because number one, we need the staircase to go access the rear of the building. And anyhow, this is going to be a positive covenant between council and the applicant. So it is on the applicant for any modifications that do come, that do take place in the future. So we just request a rewording of this to remove the eave located above the entryway and the staircase and allow them to be a part of this easement. That's it.
Council Bridget, are you there? Have you got any comment to make on that suggestion? As this is, we might just have to take that on notice. We'll take that into consideration and let you know.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Is that it then?
That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you much. Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Today. Okay. The next application we have is 16 Thompson Street, Tamarama, DA 181/2018/A, and its modification to the internal layout and then roof line and just window side. We have one objector registered to speak, and it is Joan Ford. Joan, are you present?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You might want to speak up.
Okay, my name is Joan Ford. I live in 146 Hewlett Street, Bronte, which is at the southern end of 16 Thompson Street. I've lived here for more than 50 years. My concern is the increased water flow from 16 Thompson Street into my property and properties downstream, because the garden for the new house at the southern side of the site is to be raised by about 6 meters to make a flat lawn and easy access to the swimming pool. The soil is to be retained by high retaining walls. The walls are about 1 to 3 metres from the southern and eastern boundaries. This creates water channels below the retaining walls, which directs stormwater directly into my property. There's no retaining wall on my property, unlike 144 and 144A Hewlett Street. The combined upper and lower lawn level and gardens at number 16 have a catchment of 236 square metres, and the stormwater from this area is channeled straight through to 146. There is no stormwater plan included in the current plans. Having lived here for 50 years, I've seen many a good storm and seen flooding at the back of my property and others downstream. Last year, there were 2 storms, and this resulted in flooding in my basement. I've added capacity to our stormwater outlet and pump, but I believe stormwater should be a mutual responsibility. The stormwater which flows from number 16 will increase the stormwater due to raising of the ground level. During the current demolition phase at number 16, the site supervisor has installed a pit and a pump at the southeastern corner, which pumps the water up to Thompson Street. This has prevented flooding at 146 during this period of heavy rain. I request that an appropriate stormwater management plan is developed for number 16, which collects and pumps stormwater to the front of number 16 and limits the runoff onto number 146. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Joan. Are there any questions of the objector?
Just through you, Madam Chair, a point of clarification, Joan. When you talked about that sump pump system, was that part of the previous development that existed on the site?
No, there's never been any pump there, Peter, and there has always been a significant stormwater flow. And during the construction site, when I look at a massive sand dune at the back of 16 Thompson Street, the site supervisor has put a pit and a pump in, and he's taking the water out. That kind of thing is going to be needed when the garden is raised, that's 6 metres.
So that's picking up water from the excavation, is it?
Well, it's not an excavation at the moment. The land has increased dramatically.
Just the overflow, over ground flow they're picking up at the moment.
Well, at the moment there's a hill, not an excavation. It's at least 6 metres above the old ground level, and the water with the storms has been coming down from that.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a condition for on-site stormwater detention. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am, but it does not address the southeastern boundary. The stormwater addresses the issue of the house, and that is pumped out to Thompson Street. There is no address of the stormwater coming down through the property, out through properties in Hewlett Street, down towards the ocean. It's a natural flow. The land has always flowed downwards, but now the ground level has been increased in one part of the site, but not in the corner, the southeast corner. So the normal flow of water will increase significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the panel? I might just go through the applicants.
I don't.
Okay. All right, so we've got Shimbandali Prasad to address the panel on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, hi there. Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. I'm Shivanjali Prasad. I'm from GSA Planning, And here with me is Adriana Basile and Madeline Blanchfield, who are the architects. And they're also available for any architectural or technical queries that the panel might have. So first, we commend the council officer's favourable and comprehensive assessment. We accept all of the conditions and recommendations made in the report, and we do not wish to challenge any of the conditions. So before addressing the submission we've just heard, I might just summarise a couple of the council officer's conclusions. So the development, which is just a modification, remains compliant with the height limit under the LEP. It retains the approved wall height, building height, all of the setbacks and the external building envelope from the approval. It also continues to satisfy as a DCP requirements for landscaping, open space and swimming pools, and the dwelling will continue to be compatible with the character of the locality. So there was a small increase in GFA from the original approval, and we just want to reiterate that it's almost entirely non-habitable space in the basement, and the extent of the basement will remain unchanged. We're just changing the storage area to a laundry. Additional areas of GFA are all entirely within the approved envelope, and council have considered it acceptable in their report. There won't be any additional impacts in terms of amenity either, in terms of bulk, scale, sunlight access, privacy or views. And we note council has addressed the issues raised by the objectors in their report in regards to stormwater and privacy, and we accept all of the comments made in council's report. In terms of the issues raised by Joan that we have just heard, as mentioned in council's report, stormwater management was improved under the previous application, and the modifications won't make any change to the approved stormwater management on the site. And the architects can also provide some clarification.
Yeah, so the pump that's been installed now by the builders during construction, that can stay. So the intention is that that will remain after the project's finished. It's something that our client's prepared to do as a gesture of goodwill. And the ground level where that pump is at the moment is unchanged. So the retaining wall's set back quite significantly from the boundaries. So any overland flow caught at the new level will be dealt with with our detention tank, and anything that does get around the sides will be pumped out as per what's on site at the moment. I don't know if that needs to be somehow formalised, but that's certainly the intention of our client and the builder.
Yes. It might be conditions. I mean, at the moment it is something you're doing as part of the construction, but are prepared to formalise that permanently. We might need to condition that if
that would be acceptable to us for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear. All right. Thank you for that. Are there any questions from the panel?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll probably take that into consideration in our deliberations. So thanks for that additional information.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is 4 Ruthven Street, Bondi Junction, which is alterations and additions to an existing dwelling. And the DA number is 354/2021. And we have registered Duncan Bond on behalf of the applicant. There were no submissions received and there are no objections. So, Duncan, did you have anything to say?
Happy with the conditions. You can hear me? Yes. Yep. Yes. Happy with the conditions, happy with the assessments, no issues, just present here just in case there's any queries, any questions and any other objections we weren't aware of. So yeah, don't have anything else to say, it's fine.
Okay, I'll just refer to the panel and see if there's any questions of the applicant. No?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Duncan.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our next item. It's at 60 Blair Street, North Bondi. It's alterations and additions to Redham House, including the expansion onto the adjoining site at 60 Blair Street and a change of use from a place of public worship to an educational institution. It is a DA 213/2021. And we have one objector registered to speak, David Vale. David, are you available to speak now? Is David in attendance at the meeting? No. I can't see his name here. Perhaps what we might do, if that's okay, I'm just wondering, we could just go on to the next item and then come back and see whether David just hasn't arrived yet, or we could just skip it. So I'm not quite sure what the normal protocol would be. Maybe the Secretariat can advise. Are you happy to just wait and let us go to the next item and then come back to this item to see whether the objector is show up? Is that okay, Andrew?
Yes, Madam Chair, that'll be fine.
Okay, all right. So, all right, well, we'll just hold for 5 minutes or so, if that's okay. Thank you. We'll just move on to the next item, which is 12 Burge Street, Vaucluse, modifications to the internal layout and parking bay. And it's DA 325/2020/A. And we have no objectors. And there's one to speak of the applicant, Andrew Martin. Andrew, would you like to address the panel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, for opportunity to address the panel today. We have a report before you that recommends approval of this amendment. We'd obviously like the panel to endorse that recommendation today. We are here to answer any questions if the panel has any questions of me or the architects. Thank you very much.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I don't.
None from me.
No.
All right, well, that was straightforward. Okay, so thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Now I might just check back on and to see whether David Vale has turned up. No? Okay, well, we might just roll on to the next one and come back again, because we seem to be getting quite speedily through these items. The next item is 43 Ramsgate Avenue, Bondi Beach, alterations and additions to a residential flat building, including an additional level to accommodate 2 units. We have one registered objector, John Anthony. Is John Anthony here?
Hello. Hello, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. So I'm John Anthony, owner of Unit 960 Ramsgate Avenue, Bondi. My apartment is almost immediately opposite the site in question on level 3. I only bought this property within the last 18 months, and within this time, this is the 3rd development application that has been lodged that will directly and materially adversely impact my property and my views of the ocean. Understandably, I am frustrated. The only remaining view of the ocean I have left to salvage is over the existing character roof line of 43 Ramsgate Avenue by virtue of its A-frame. When I bought my property, I had assumed that such a distinctly character and Art Deco building and roof line, critically forming part of the Bondi Beach Heritage Conservation Area, would be prohibited by Waverley Council from further redevelopment, particularly to the roof line, as the roof line is clearly visible from street level. There are 5 points I would like to submit to you on the adverse impact to my property. First and foremost is the devastating loss of views. Secondly is the applicability of the Bondi Beach Heritage Conservation Area to the site, in particular, including failure to recognise the gabled, hipped, tiled roof as a key characteristic of interwar flat buildings, as identified on Waverley Council's fact sheets relating to interwar flat buildings. Thirdly is a gross and direct invasion of privacy to my apartment. Fourthly is no parking and adverse impact on vehicular traffic flow to the street. And fifthly is a negative impact on value to my property. So firstly, on devastating loss of views, the revised amended plans seek to rely upon an expired development approval at 146 Warners Avenue to evidence that there was no loss of views to my and my neighbours' apartments. This DA, which is DA 290 of 2014, has lapsed as it has not been substantial commitments of works by the expiry of the approval. A construction certificate that was received by council was a mere 5 days prior to the expiry of the approval. The clear intent of this last-minute scramble to submit a construction certificate was to attempt to preserve the development approval. However, the submission is invalid as it does not evidence substantial commencement of construction of the development and rather only extremely minor works which are insignificant in the context of the development. I have separately objected to the submission that substantial works have been commenced in relation to that development. Irrespective of whether that development approval is valid or not, the construction of the development at 1446 Warners Avenue has not commenced. Accordingly, there will still remain a significant loss of views to my unit if the development at 43 Ramsgate Avenue is approved and developed. The second item, and probably the most important, is the Bondi Beach Heritage Conservation Area Heritage Impact Assessment. I personally find that the applicant's heritage impact statement is not representative of the views of the community or surrounding property owners. It should be completely focused on the Bondi Beach Heritage Conservation Area, which precinct, which it does not. The proposed development clearly lies within the precinct. It's clearly identifiable as an interwar flat building. So the changing of the roof line, which is highly visible from the street level, will have a material impact on this building, no longer being identifiable as an interwar flat building. Council is fully aware of the cultural significance of interwar flat buildings and have indeed published a publicly available interwar fact sheet, which identifies that the pitch, hipped or gable tiled roofs as a key identifying feature of design and style of interwar flat buildings. The third, fourth and fifth points I've elaborated in more detail on in my written submissions, and I'm conscious of we're running out of time. So
yeah, I think we've run out of time. So thanks very much, John. Acknowledging that that the building is still within the building height. Your comments are noted about the interwar gabled roof and the other issues. We've got the planner for the applicant, Lee Cosmeta, here, I believe. Is Lee? I thought I saw you, Lee. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Would you please, in your representation, address those concerns by the objector and any submission and any issues you have with regarding the conditions or the recommendation of council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, panellists. I want to thank the officers for their report and endorse their recommendation to approve this application. I've reviewed the conditions of consent and can confirm they're accepted in their entirety. The proposal offers a unique opportunity to rejuvenate this interwar flat building in Bondi Beach. It's proposed to utilise the existing scale of the roof to provide for an additional unit, as well as a design overhaul of the building to improve the aesthetic contribution that it makes to the Bondi Basin. The design by AN+AN Architects has been tailored to the specific interwar qualities of this building, with oversight from Weir Phillips Heritage and Urban Design, the authors of Waverley Council's interwar flat building policy. In partnership with these architects and urban designers, I've been lucky enough to work on a number of these buildings with great success through collaboration with council's planners. The project has been subject to design input from Council's Heritage Advisor and planners, and the report acknowledges the positive outcomes resulting from the proposal. The building will include the introduction of 3 affordable rental housing units. Subject to the bonus provisions under that RCEP, the proposal complies with the FSR development standard. It also remains well below the height development standard by about a story. The additions have been sculpted to ensure there is no view impact or solar access impact on the adjoining properties. In fact, the end result is that there will be increased sunlight to the adjoining properties. Commenting on the objector's submission that the building at 146 Warners Avenue has not, Ramsgate, sorry, Warners Avenue has not commenced. We have the documentation available to show that there has been a validly issued construction certificate, notice of commencement of works, and physical commencement of works on the site to secure that consent. It was done towards the death of the construction certificate program, as is the case often to secure that consent. Notwithstanding that, the approval on 146 Warners Avenue is a compliant approval. And if it were to lapse, it would be reasonably accepted to be replaced with a similar compliant scaled building. We're very proud of this proposal as another example of our group's commitment to restoring these interwar flat buildings. I'd encourage the panel to accept the recommendations in the council's report. I have the architect Dustin Cashmore available and myself for any questions that you might have.
Any of the panel have questions?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And no questions of Mr. Cosnetta. Just a point of clarification with Mr. Anthony. I just want to know what he said. He was in 60 Ramsgate Avenue, top floor. Is that Unit 9 or?
Yeah, that's right. Unit 9.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the panel?
No, I don't have any.
No, thank you.
Okay. Just for the point that you worked with Reed Phillips, and they were also the authors of the interwar policy for council. Was there any consideration of maintaining the roofline in the proposal, or was that not considered to be critical to the integrity of the item?
Certainly, Madam Chair, that's the starting position for these buildings, but the roof has been examined, and in this particular case, isn't one that Weir Phillips thought was a contributing factor for this building. The study talks about red terracotta tile roofs being a consistent palette throughout Bondi Beach. This is a replacement roof that isn't original and isn't the red terracotta colour. And the design of the new addition, it facilitates better planning outcomes for not only the amenity of the units in the building, but the surrounding buildings by taking off the eaves, the very deep eaves that cause overshadowing to surrounding buildings. So on balance, this was the approach that the designers have taken to restore this building.
Thanks very much. We might now just revert back to the item on the agenda, which we skipped earlier, which was Redden House. So that's, let me just go to it. DA 213/2021, 60 Blair Street, North Bondi, the alterations and additions to the existing school Redden House, including its expansion into the adjoining site. And we have one registered speaker for the an objector, David Vale. David, are you with us now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great.
If you could keep your comments to 3 minutes and off you go.
Okay. I'd just like to reiterate the concerns raised in our letter. The 3 topics, or the 3 most concerning issues for people living in the vicinity. I'm about 3-4 doors up the street, were parking and traffic and the bicycle path. I might take the last first. I'm a keen bicyclist. but I'm also forced to be a bicyclist in North Bondi because I often can't park anywhere near the premises there because of the peaks in parking and the loss of sort of timed parking and all sorts of other special purpose parking that's been there. I've often have to park a kilometre away, going to work or coming back late at night. I do sort of some late shifts, and the combination of the increased population, more car use, and less generic spaces means that basically need to carry a bike to get to my car in reasonable time. I've also tried to go down to the ferry, and the going through that corner where the new proposal is based has been sort of quite difficult and precarious at any time other than really late in the evening, and the combination means that the potential impact on cycling, the very incomplete sort of bike path that goes along the street, and basically the danger, whether you're going off like I do to put your car in the back of the bike in the back of a car, or travelling further, is likely to be impacted by the intensification on the corner. In relation to the parking, I mentioned the staff parking. I'm not sure, how you'd force the staff to park a long way away and in sort of paid parking. The potential for the extra students to sort of essentially make sort of parking difficult at quite a lot of many times of the day. I think we've flagged there. I think that there's a bit of a disagreement between us and the proponents about whether they have that sort of impact. I've been there. I've often working from home at various stages, and I've seen those impacts from students coming, students going. So the intensification of that site with no extra capacity just seems certain to make it even more impossible. Essentially, the problems that I find every so often, every couple of days or whatever, of having to park a really long way away, are likely to be a very regular feature. And finally, the level of traffic. I've seen in other schools, you end up with sort of peaks of drop off and pick up at various stages, and clogging nearby streets. That I can't see any way that that's not going to happen here. And so effectively it risks sort of turning that corner through this sort of overdevelopment into something that's sort of really difficult, quite dangerous for people on cycles, maybe bumping cyclists to go up on the footpath to get around it, but just difficult in that regard. Thank you. I'm sorry, I had my 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much, David. We'll now hear from, are there any questions from the panel? So we have Andrew Minto, town planner, to speak on behalf of the applicant. Andrew, are you there?
Yeah, Madam Chair. So
yeah. Okay. So Andrew, just before you begin, if you could probably cut to the chase and address the objectors' comments that were made in those in the many submissions received, and then if you've got any issues with the conditions of the council report.
Right, thanks, Madam Chair. Well, I mean, cutting to the chase, I've actually got Tom Steele, who is the applicant's traffic engineer, online as well. So he's able to respond to some of those traffic-related matters. But all I can say is that there's been, during the assessment of the application, there has been significant dialogue with the council regarding traffic and parking management issues. And it's considered the proposal via the various documents that have been provided and the conditions proposed, that the issues relating to traffic and parking have been satisfactorily addressed. In relation to the provision of a bike path, I think that probably goes a bit beyond the realms of this application. It's probably a strategic planning issue that the council need to consider moving forward. But just in relation to the subject application, so Redham House have occupied the site at 66 to 68 Oakley Road being the existing school campus since at least 2000. The site comprises essentially their senior school campus, with all junior years operating from their site in Wallara. The school has been under significant pressure over recent years to expand the number of student places available on the site, and the opportunity to acquire and expand the school operations onto the adjoining property at 60 Blair Street presented a perfect opportunity to provide these additional student places. We believe that the issues relevant to this application have been comprehensively dealt with within the council report, including those issues raised by the objectors. And on that basis, we endorse the recommendations of the council report and look forward to the panel's favourable consideration. So as advised, I do have the architect John Ward and the traffic engineer Tom Steele available if you have any specific questions of them. Thank you.
It might be worth hearing from Tom Steele with regard to the traffic and parking issues, which seem to be the largest concern.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and panel. I'll just respond quickly to the issues raised by Mr. Vale in the same order as he brought them up. So the cycling concerns, like I understand where he's coming from. It's a busy road and it's a busy area for cyclists. And the school is putting in a number of bicycle parking spaces to try to encourage the students to ride their bikes as well. And as such, we're a supporter of any future infrastructure that council may consider to improve cyclist safety in the area. But there's, as Andrew Minto referred to, it's not really within the scope of our application to provide that infrastructure at this stage. Moving on to the parking. Look, I completely agree with Mr. Vale. The parking in the area is more or less at capacity. We did parking surveys of the area and that's what we found, which is why we've come up with our proposal to provide satellite parking. What we expect is that staff will use that parking because they can't find a parking space close to the school. So that when they arrive, they'll preferentially use the satellite parking, which has been reserved for them, rather than driving that extra distance to the school, finding they still have to park a couple of 100 meters away and then making that walk. And for the student parking, there are some students, we did do travel mode surveys of the school, including both the students and the staff. We understand there are a big minority of students, or a very small minority of students rather, in year 12 that drive their vehicles to school. But that number won't increase. So we're not adding any year 12 students as a result of this development application. Only students in years 8 and 9 will be added, and those students won't be driving. So there should be no change in the amount of student parking that occurs on the streets. And to the traffic congestion, we've done a detailed study of the existing travel mode use and found that there's a fairly high reliance already of students and staff on public transport. And we expect and encourage and will encourage through the use of a green travel plan and an operational traffic management plan for that to increase in the future. And the council has encouraged us to further develop that plan such that any increases in student numbers will be tied to the success of the plan, such that the congestion in the area with regards to traffic must stay approximately the same as it is currently. Even then, we have modelled an increase in traffic and found that there's no impact on the surrounding streets or intersections, which is a result that council has also endorsed. I hope that covers all the issues.
Thank you. I'll just check and see if there are any questions from the panel.
Yes, Madam Chair, just a clarification from Andrew. My understanding, the present situation is that years 10, 11 and 12 are at the Bondi campus and 7, 8 and 9 are at the Wallara campus. Is it, in the report it said it's going to take years 8 and 9 to Bondi. Is it also taking year 7, so the whole high school section of Redham goes to Bondi?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's my understanding at this stage the proposal is for years 8 and 9 only.
So 7 would stay
at Wallara at this point.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Is that a pedagogical or a logistical reason?
I'm not sure the exact reason. It just works in with their timetable in their class facilities and teaching program.
So there could be potential move later on.
I guess, yeah, it depends on how things pan out in terms of student numbers and facilities and, you know, how the classes provided on site go.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Andrew. All right. Well, we might just move back to the flow of our agenda. So thank you for waiting, and while the objector had an opportunity to join the meeting. The next application we have before us is for 11 Silver Street, Tamarama, DA 122/2021. It's recommended for refusal, and it's the demolition of an existing buildings and construction of a new 3-story dwelling, including car lift, stacker, tree removal, and swimming pool. So let me just go back to my. Sorry, I just have to find my agenda here. So we have 2 objectives registered to speak. Igor Fassel is the first. Is Igor in attendance? Yes, I can. Thank you, Igor. If you could just make your objections known. Thank you.
Yeah,
noting that the recommendation is for refusal.
it is, and I'll keep it short and sweet. So thanks to the council for the diligence that they've taken in assessing the proposal, and thanks to this panel for allowing me the time to address it. Obviously, in council's recommendations, it's very thoroughly and quite explicitly explained their reasons for refusing the application, and there are many. There are grounds around the stormwater drain proposal. There are impacts, very adverse impacts on very many neighbours, as can be seen by the number of objections that this resulted in. I would like to say that I support and would like council and this panel to endorse council's recommendation of refusing the DA application. It's also clearly noted in the assessment that there are very reasonable ways, and basic and skillful design would result in a very acceptable dwelling for the owner of that site. Thank you.
Thank you, and noted. Are there any questions for the objector?
No.
We might move on to our next objector, Sophie Baldwin from 12 Silver Street.
Yeah, hello. And I echo quite a few points that Igor said. I'm just checking you can hear me. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I live at the bottom of the cul-de-sac from the proposed site, and I just want to reiterate that I actually think the site does need to be developed, and having it uninhabitable with asbestos, with squatters, like I actually want to support, but also echo the points that Igor said, that a more clever use of design, and we could have come out with an outcome that would be beneficial. At a personal level with my home, I think there's an issue with privacy, and the way that Silver Street is, I don't know if the panel know, this street is already very problematic. The garbage truck can't get down. I think if there was ever an emergency, the vehicles can't get down the street. The parking on either side is so tight, I can't leave. I have to exit my driveway backwards. And I feel that part of this development is pushed a lot of the problems down to me, down the street, literally. And the 2 main parts of that is the stormwater management. Being at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, when there is a large storm, it all comes in front of my house. It's not a problem, but I feel that by pushing the drainage further down towards us, which is the recommendation, that there's a huge amount of water that's going to come in front of my home, and I would want assurances from council that if that moves for that home, that we are included in any future planning for that. The second part of this development, to allow for the stackable car space, is the beach pathway, and our house runs alongside the beach pathway. I don't know if council have done studies, but it's an exceptionally heavily used pathway from early in the morning for exercises to people going home from the beach. And it's the only way pedestrians can move from the beach down at Tamarama to get up to sort of the shops on Fletcher Street without going through the gully, particularly at night. It's used so heavily, and my concerns are that by that staircase moving south towards my property, that people will be able to look, the public will be able to look straight into our windows, and also just the noise that comes with the path. And the items that would come from that pathway being moved as part of a long building process. I would like to ask the council to provide modelling of how that path will look in 3D so that the community can look at that. My only other point is the asbestos that's noted on the site, that there's a careful plan for the removal of that, given it's so close to all our houses. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Any questions for Sophie? No? Okay. All right. We don't have anyone to speak on behalf of the applicant as registered, so we'll just take those comments and consider them in our deliberations. So we might just move straight on to the next application, which is 79 to 103 Wellington Street, Bondi Beach, the demolition of the existing structures to develop a 2 4-storey containing 56 apartments, including infill affordable housing units and 2 levels of basement parking. The DA is 268/2020. And we have a number of objectives. And we have registered to speak one objector, two objectors. The first is Nicolette Boas. Is Nicolette there and ready to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I'm just going to the door. I will have to be reading from here, so I'll have to go off this and go into. Can you still see me and hear me?
Yep. We can hear you, but you've gone on to your photo.
That's okay.
That's fine. We can hear you.
Okay. We are all aware that development at the moment is unprecedented and out of control, and that this is the largest development in Waverley currently on the table. So you arbiters are extremely powerful, and I imagine take this position very seriously. I too take my role as a community member very seriously. I've lived in Bondi most of my life, and here is my take on this development. The fact that these 13 cute houses and 2 old school red brick blocks of flats will be lost, quite frankly, breaks my heart. I understand it is a fait accompli. The developer has slowly and inexorably bought up each and every site. However, my objection today is about the future of this site and the power this panel has to give Waverley something that at best something will happily coexist with, and at worst something that takes away everything and gives little. It is not reasonable to lose all the open space that currently exists around these buildings. Children will be living here, and it is wrong to concrete up to the very last centimetre of open space. It is psychologically unhealthy for everyone concerned. Open space is what this panel is dealing with, and it is the gold of the modern world, and for good reason. It makes humans even-tempered. But even more important than human happiness is a space for the open world. We as humans must attempt to live in harmony with the natural world. Believe it or not, there are animals currently living at the back of these buildings, birds, possums, and insects. Humans have a misguided idea that wildlife will just move on to the next space. The next space has also been sold off. In your deliberations about how much open space the developer should be allowed to take up, I hope that you include in that concept the importance to residents and the natural world of the amount of open space that should surround these buildings. There are rules about this. Please make the developer abide by and respect the amount of open space around these buildings. That is all.
Okay, any questions for Nicolette?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nicolette. Our next objector is Neil Eberhardt. Is Neil
Hi.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good afternoon. My name's obviously just Niels. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here in front of the panel. I'm the owner of one of the properties who share a direct boundary with the development of 63 O'Brien Street. And we've already made 2 extensive submissions together with the owners of 65 and 65A O'Brien Street to object to the DA. And whilst a lot of the issues raised have been addressed in the revised plans, we're still extremely concerned about the impacts on privacy and overshadowing of our properties, with the height still being over 13 meters, which is obviously casting additional shadowing to our garden and living area, which is highlighted in the submitted plans as additional shadowing. And in terms of privacy, as Nicolette was saying, so we're going from beautiful backyards, trees, outlooks with birds and animals to people looking straight into our living and garden area. And these aspects very likely will negatively impact the value of all our 3 properties as well. And in addition to the direct impact on our properties, we're also deeply concerned about the negative impact of the development on the whole neighborhood. We've had conversations with many residents of the surrounding streets who all object to the development due to its scale. So overbearing completely changes the character, as Nicolette was saying, of the area from single and semi-houses neighborhood to an overdeveloped apartment area. And lastly, the traffic situation on the intersection of Wellington and O'Brien Street is already a major issue and a safety concern, especially for children having to cross the intersection on their way to school, which that's very close, obviously, on Wellington Street. We as residents normally have to wait for a long amount of time before we can scramble over the road, dodging cars and buses. And whilst the number outlined in the applicant's traffic management report may look okay on paper, it's suggesting that there'll be less cars going in and out of Wellington Street. The reality will likely look very different. It's already hardly acceptable. And lastly, I'm sure that the owners of 65A would still have even more concerns, but that property has just been sold because the past owners felt too threatened by the whole development and just couldn't deal with it. But the new owners, unfortunately, are not contactable yet because the handover just happened on Friday. Well, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niels. Any questions from the panel? No? Okay. Thank you. So we have Lee Cosnetta from the applicant's side to present to the panel. Again, Lee, if you could just address the council report and also the objectors' main concerns in terms of loss of vegetation, privacy, habitat, and traffic parking and overshadowing, I think were the main issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, panelists. Again, thank you. And I wanted to thank the officers for a comprehensive report and endorse their recommendation. There is one condition of consent that we will seek an amendment to, and I will raise that at the conclusion of my short summary. This proposal was lodged with Council 14 months ago, following a formal pre-DA with staff over 2 years ago. In terms of the building's design and scale, it has been the subject of detailed assessment by Council staff with input from their Design Excellence Advisory Panel, Council's Urban Designers and Heritage Advisors. There has been a substantial amount of collaboration on this final design. It has formally been amended 3 times in direct response to Council's requests for changes, all of which have been met. The project will introduce 14 affordable housing units onto the site as part of a meaningful infill development for this section of Wellington Street that meets the Council's requirements in the LEP, DCP, and will enhance the character of the locality. The proposal complies with the Apartment Design Guide. It offers more than compliant side and rear setbacks and is significantly below the FSR standard by more than 900 square metres and has been refined to suit the requirements of all technical departments within Council. The proposal relies on a clause 4.6 variation for the height standard that the Council officers have accepted, noting the variations are limited to roof embellishments that cause no adverse impacts on adjoining properties and preserve their amenity. The condition I wanted to draw the panel's attention to is condition number 54. It is the condition that allocates parking spaces within the development. This proposal has a total of 56 car spaces and the report acknowledges that this complies. That condition outlines that 11 spaces are for affordable units, 10 are for visitors, and this is reflected in points B and C, but the totals in the condition don't add up to 56. Inclusive of the loading bay, there'll be 34 residential car spaces, not 32. And so I'd suggest that subpoint A of condition 54 should be altered to read 34 spaces instead of 32. In addressing the concerns of the objectors, for Ms. Bell as the community representative, the site retains the very significant central tree. The building has been designed around retaining that tree. 550 square metres of deep soil planting has been provided on the site. That's more than twice the requirement in the apartment design guide, and is around 10% more than the development control plan requirement as well, with 1,080 square metres of communal open space in and around this development. There's also a very substantial landscape plan that looks to replace plants and trees for the entire perimeter of the site. In addressing concerns about privacy to the rear of properties at 65 and 65A and 63 O'Brien Street, the proposal has been specifically refined and adjusted in this corner to provide balconies that offer full compliance with the apartment design guide separation requirements that meet privacy objectives in the design guide. In terms of overshadowing, our analysis and council's report confirmed that the height variation is not responsible for any additional overshadowing of the building compared to a compliant development, and that in fact the adjoining properties will continue to receive more than compliant levels of sunlight, preserving their amenity, which is the test. In terms of traffic, our traffic engineers and council's traffic engineers have stated in the report that there's a negligible impact on the street network, and the proposal has obviously also been refined with parking numbers and therefore traffic generation reduced since its original submission. And I didn't have a particular comment to make about 65A and the recent sale, other than as part of the sale to the previous owners at 65A, there was a history of them receiving information about this application, and they were very forthcoming in ensuring that the new owners were aware of this application. So I can only suggest they are aware of the application, and we've not received a submission from them. I have, sorry, Panel Chair, I do have the developer builder here today, and hopefully, and the architect as well, Paul Bulchevic, if you have any questions.
Okay, I'll just refer to the panel. Does the panel have any questions or comments?
I just have a question, Chair. Can you tell me what the current deep soil of the amalgamated lot is?
I don't have the number in front of me, other than to say the rear area of a substantial amount of the sites at the moment is a concrete hardstand space leading to garages, particularly at the rear of the northernmost properties, 103 and 101 and 99 Wellington Street. I think I can confidently say that there would be an increase in deep soil planting from this proposal compared to the current. Certainly in terms of open space, 1,000 square metres of communal open space around this site as well is quite substantial.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, then we might just thank you for your presentation and move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Is Diamond Bay Reserve, Diamond Bay, upgrade to Diamond Bay Reserve tip-top walk, replacing the existing boardwalk structure with new additional viewing platform, seats, bins, signage, fencing and landscaping. And as this is a council application, the planner for the application is Urban Design. There's been a number of objections, and because of the time frame, a number of issues raised have been addressed through amendments in the council report rather than conditions in the council report rather than amendments to the proposal. So just to make sure when you're addressing those, I just want to make sure that anyone who's speaking on behalf of the objections is aware of the council's conditions when they're speaking. So the first speaker I have registered is Dove Fraser on behalf of the precinct committee. We've got Dove here. Oh yes, oh Dove, you're on mute.
Mute. Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
I'm not sure what the
I have some. It's very specific. I have some very specific images that are relevant to my presentation, and my presentation doesn't make sense without the images.
I don't have a problem with it. Is that okay, Secretariat?
We don't usually, but it is your call.
Okay, I don't have a problem with it, so.
Great, thank you. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Right. Okay, I'll start. My name's Dove Fraser. I'm the Dover Heights Precinct Convener and a resident and ratepayer of Dover Heights. I'm speaking in regard to the proposed materials to be used in the cliff walk, specifically wood and steel. The first slide shows the condition of the cliff walk stairs at Lancaster Road, Dover Heights. The report specifically says that hardwood can have a lifespan of 50 years. In fact, natural wood is the least durable material that deteriorates faster than any other material next to the coast. So what are the alternatives? Look no further than Waverly's other cliff walk at the cemetery. The first two slides show the cliff walk at the cemetery. The composite walking material is in great condition after many, many years. That's the upper right picture. Now look north to the more recently installed Narrabeen Lagoon walkway, bottom two images. The composite surfaces have weathered perfectly and show no sign of deterioration due to the coastal environment. Please let's up our game and use composite materials for the walkway that are appropriate to the environment and will pass the test of time. Now let's talk stainless steel. This is the slide 3. What's the difference between 316 and 2205 stainless steel? 2205 has a greater chromium content and has a greater corrosion resistance as compared to 316. 2205 is 4 times more resistant to pitting near seawater, has a greater tensile strength and superior hardness. Now let's look at what the Cliff Walks report says. The report says the use of 2205 stainless steel is not suitable for the purpose along the cliff walks and is typically used in manufacturing and plant. This statement is completely false, as 2205 is completely fit for purpose along the clifftop walk and has been used in many other coastal projects in Australia, such as Brisbane's Riverwalk and Perth's Elizabeth's Quay. The report says the proposed use of 316 stainless steel is consistent with existing coastal fencing. This is only partially true. Actually, the only section of new coastal fencing that has already been installed is in Hugh Banford, and you're looking at the result in this image. The 316 stainless proposed for the new cliff walk looks exactly like this as the exact material that has been specified. This 316 is about a year old and already looks horrible. However, Council has resolved by motion to use 2205 stainless steel in the soon-to-be installed section of the new coast fence in Rodney Reserve. The report also says the proposed stainless steel is structurally fit for purpose and resistant to rust and corrosion. This statement is false, as 316 is completely tea stains like crazy, as you can clearly see. Tea staining is not corrosion. Is corrosion. The statement that tea stain is not corrosion is completely false. Tea staining is not rust, but is defined as corrosion. Corrosion that discolors metal. The report also says that prior to the selection of the stainless steel, Council consulted with Australian Stainless Steel Development Association. The Stainless Steel Development Association says the 316 stainless is the minimal grade to be used. It also states that 316 should be selected as a minimum within 5 kilometers for such application as splash zones. Higher grades of stainless steel, such as 2205 duplex, may be required. I'll move straight on to cost. What's the difference in cost? It's about 20%. Why is this cost not such a big deal? The steel use is only one of many components of the project. 20% greater cost of this one component is not going to have an equivalent cost increase to the entire project. I'll go straight to the bottom line. This is the last slide. Composite materials for the walking surface that have already been used in the cemetery near Narrabeen Lagoon are fit for purpose, will not degrade over time, and are appropriate to be used in this project. 316 corrosive environment of any location on any landmass. 316 stainless on the cliffwalk is going to look exactly like it does in Hugh Bamford, which was that slide I showed you, which is the location that has already been installed. The staining and corrosion of steel as proposed in the cliffwalk is not an acceptable aesthetic solution.
Okay, thank
Council
you.
will say
Thank you.
that
I think
good
we
enough.
I think we have the key points, the salient points. Are there any other points you wanted to make besides materiality? No.
Yeah, I have key points that the Waverley Development Panel should do the right thing and specify the higher grade of steel. Do this for the resident ratepayers, for the millions of visitors and tourists, and do not accept the minimally accepted but visually horrific 316. Finally, there were motions passed by both the Dover Heights precinct and the combined precinct in favor of the 2205 stainless steel.
Thank you.
The cost difference is minor, and the
Thank you.
long-term
No, I think we actually have the point now, and we've gone over. So, well, with respect to the other speakers, we'll just move on. So, thank you. We have noted your points. The next speaker registered is Chris Wallace from the Australian Slacklining Association, or if not Chris Wallace, Arthur Para. Are you here, Chris? Ready to speak?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, apologies for any background noise that's generated. Yeah, I'm here to represent the Australian slacklining community and the New South Wales and rest of Australian climbing community. I'd also like to request if there's an opportunity at the end, Warwick, another representative for the climbing community is here, as it's a particularly different cause between the two of us. We both want to see access to the cliffs maintained long term, obviously for different activities, however. Yeah, so there's been a really long history with climbing in the area, and it would be a shame to lose that. You know, it's an Australian history. It's been happening since the 1960s. Outdoor activities are also incredibly important for our health and well-being, and it's been proven time and time again that the benefits of outdoor activities for mental health and appreciation for nature, resilience to other health issues. Diamond Bay is incredibly important for our community, and the outdoor activity community is no different. Diamond Bay offers passive and adventurous opportunities, which has brought people from regional New South Wales, interstate, and overseas, and has the opportunity to bring more people to pursue slacklining and climbing activities. We've also had multiple meetings over the years with Tony Polovic. He's the Waverley Council Managing Director. As early as 2020, he did support our activities, and it's also worth noting the Council Plan of Management has said in the past, climbing is not to be discouraged, or climbers should not be fined for their activities. This is public land, and we shouldn't be basically blocked out of using it. Basically, all of this is in relevance to the raising of the fence height, and council should be instead of discouraging this activity, this should be an active way to get the community involved in outdoor activities that are safe, reliable, and close to the city. This is, I believe you get the point of what I'm trying to say.
No, Chris, actually, probably you need to be a bit clearer. I'd be interested to know what you're wanting to see, because, it was quite clear the previous told us exactly what he was seeking. What are you seeking on behalf of the Slacklining Association?
Definitely, yeah. So we've included this
in
the report. Yeah, basically with the raising of the fences, we'd also like to see the addition of a few gates at a few key points. This will stop, climbers and slackliners having to jump over the fence and risk the police being called, and it turns into a mess every time. And there's no illegal reason for, sorry. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
There's
Gates. Gates. Okay.
Yes, Gates.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Apologies, sorry, I'm right in the middle of job and just
That's
had to
okay.
try and get a moment for this.
Are there any questions from the panel?
I guess
from myself or for the
No, from the panel too.
Yes, sorry.
Peter, did you have a question?
In what particular location do you require gates to access the cliffs? So I can
Okay, yeah. So this is all included in our DA submission. We've got a map which we've pinpointed the locations. There's a number at Diamond Bay themselves, and a couple just just south of it on the top of the headland there, and I believe one north as well on the top of the headland there.
So that's up at the Craig Avenue. Okay. Yeah, I think I know where you mean. Okay, thank you.
But it's in your submission. Yeah, we can refer to that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from the panel? No. Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks. Can I reiterate my request to let Warwick talk on the behalf of the climbing community as well?
Is he here?
Yes, he's inside the meeting at the moment.
All right, well, we'll just wait till the other speakers have spoken, just to make sure we've got enough time to
no problem, yeah.
refer to people who've already registered to speak. The next speaker registered is Jonathan Pager from Ocean View Avenue, Vaucluse. Jonathan?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to address the panel. My name is Jonathan. I'm from 58 Ocean View Avenue, one of the properties along Eastern Reserve that is probably very largely impacted by the proposed amendments. I'm speaking on behalf of many of the other residents on Eastern Reserve. We just want to say thank you to the council. We endorse their general modifications that are contained in the proposed conditions of consent, which serve to preserve the views and the amenity of residents along Eastern Reserve. We're also appreciative that the council's largely taken our views into account in the amendments. We also wanted to express our appreciation to the Mayor, Paula Marcellus, who met us on site to consider the DA, and to Stephen Lewis of the Hunter Ward, who put forward a motion for the amendments that have been adopted. One objection that wasn't carried in the modifications is around the new fence. The existing stainless steel fence along Eastern Reserve is in good condition. It's got no need to be replaced. It does not obstruct the iconic views in any way and fits perfectly into the environment. And it's very similar to the fence that runs along the iconic Bondi to Bronte walk, protecting residents from the cliff. And so we're still struggling to see why a fence that serves its purpose and is in good order is being replaced along Eastern Reserve. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for that. We might just wait and ask council at the end what about that material choice or decision. Any comments or questions from the panel before we move on? Next speaker is Marcus Phillips.
I'm Marcus Phillips. Thanks for letting me address the panel. I'm 52 Eastern Avenue, so I'm on the western side of Eastern Reserve. I have at the moment, enjoying very good views. My concern is with the plantings suffering a similar fate to what's occurred in Rodney Reserve, where a remedy to plantings of an incorrect species have still to be carried out. And I'm not sure exactly what changes the council has proposed in accordance with our objections. The other one that I wish to raise is that placement of bollards takes away the protection that we currently have for unsupervised children who are on the reserve to run out onto the road. So I'm basically objecting to any plantings that might be directly in front of my house, and I would appreciate.
Is that because of the view, to maintain your view?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll just get council to address that. It may have been addressed in the modifications which are being conditioned, so I just will double check on that. When we ask, just before we go to council, is the additional speaker from the Slacklining Association here to speak? Because I think we can just quickly fit in if you're here. Is that Warwick?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, so if you could just be very brief, Warwick.
Yeah, thanks for the Madam Chair and panel. I'm a long-term resident of Bondi. I've been here since the 1990s and a representative of the Australian Climbing Access New South Wales organisation. I'm a long-term rock climber. I'd just like to reiterate the earlier points from the slackliners. We're most concerned that climbers are able to access the cliffs. They've been climbing on the cliffs since the 1960s. I remember climbing there in the 1970s. And access ideally is through gates. And also if signage could be clear that climbing is permissible. The two main issues climbers have ensuring they continue to have access to the cliffs, and that officials such as police and council officers, rangers, are not inclined to fine climbers on the misunderstanding that climbing is not permitted. Climbing is an increasing mainstream recreational activity. It's now in the Olympics. There's a new guidebook to Sydney climbing out, and it's something to be encouraged. That's all. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks, Warwick. All right, so we might just now go to Rob Sabatov, who's acting manager major projects. And so there was a number of issues raised there, and I'm sure you've jotted them down, but I'll just reiterate them to make sure we cover them off. There was the issue of integration with the Bondi walk south of Bondi Beach. And that was particularly related to use of composite materials and stainless steel, and the preference for a higher grade stainless steel 2205. We also had a request regarding access gates at key points to enable rock climbing and appropriate signage to ensure that it was permissible. It is indeed permissible. The query about the need for a new fence on Eastern Reserve, considering it's in pretty good condition, and it's the same as the one on the Southern Bondi Walk, and the issue of plantings on the Eastern Reserve, which may have already been conditioned. That may, just to clarify for the resident on Eastern Avenue, if indeed the planting had been modified to preserve views as requested, and the issue of bollards. So I know that's a long shopping list, but I'm sure you've got them all noted. So
that is a long list, but thanks, Madam Chair. Look, we took on some community feedback and resolved at Council on the 23rd of November to include some changes in regards to landscape and species. Specifically species height, so that we were not interrupting any views for residents, nearby residents. So that has been amended as part of the DA. There are other changes as well. We took out an accessible path and some seating as well. In terms of materiality, I can understand Mr. Fraser's comments on composite fibre over timber. I was the project manager on the cemetery walkway, so I can see or know the difference between the timber and composite fibre. The debate over stainless steel is a continuing one, but we're hoping to trial that at Rodney Reserve, as mentioned. And from that trial, we will table the results and whether it can be applied at other projects through Waverley. As for the rock climbing or the Slacklining Association, providing gates along this walkway, I know there are current, well, basically the biggest objective of this project is to improve safety. As you know, we've had a few issues over the last few years with people falling in certain areas, which has, you know, that's the main reason for the call of the higher fence. It would be subject to further risk reporting through council to see whether we would, you know, make that available for rock climbers. The issue there would be primarily around operating these gates and openings and making them safe for all users, not just rock climbers. So multiple issues there, and I have jotted them all down, and we will take them on board with any feedback. And just wondering if the panel has any further questions.
I'll defer to the panel in a minute, but there was also the question of bollards versus a fence.
Yes, so we are looking at replacing the majority of picket fences that end at that sort of close off a lot of these cul-de-sacs and installing bollards instead. We do have, in one particular instance, a vehicle-rated stainless coastal fence instead of bollards. But in other locations, we have used bollards where the risk is not as high for vehicles to get into Eastern Reserve. We can definitely look at that a lot closer to assess whether there's a risk there for kids going through that fence area.
Are there any other questions from the panel?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just to Rob again.
Yes.
You said that, you know, you used the composite extensively, and I know it's used through coastal walk throughout the eastern suburbs. So why not switch? Or you absolutely committed to hardwood? Is there a final decision being made, or? You know,
look, it's a good point, and I would say it's coming off the recommendation of our consultant team that we've hired for that specific location. Composite fibre, I mean, whilst it's a great material and has good longevity, it does have maintenance or operational issues in terms of fixings, and essentially is fixed to a hardwood base. So the entire structure would have to be made out of composite fibre for it to be completely durable in that location, and whether it's feasible in that location as well. So it's something I'd have to take back to our consultants and ask the question.
Okay.
From a design integrity perspective, it would seem that this is a continuation of the South Bondi. That it would make it all part of the same vocabulary. And
yeah, absolutely. Using the same material would enhance that coast walk continuance across the eastern seaboard there. So I do agree with you there. It would change the look of the coast walk through Eastern Reserve and up to Diamond Bay completely, purely on colour and material. But yeah, it's I'll take that on notice, and we can provide further feedback once we've got consultants' advice.
Okay. And so you've got funding for this project, but similar walkway to this south of Lancaster Road. So that's got no funding. So and it's probably the same vintage as this in the same condition.
Yeah.
Hopefully come later, or?
Hopefully, yes. So the assessment that we undertook now identified this area between Lancaster and Craig up to Diamond Bay as at the end of its lifespan. So this is the immediate response from council to improve that area. I would imagine south of Lancaster would be next, or not far off.
Okay. And the notations throughout the drawing supply and install 1.8 metre high temporary protective chain mesh fence. That's temporary during the life of the construction only?
That's correct.
Okay. And finally, with fences and gates and allowing access, you also got the issue of rock fishermen and children. So that's, the council's got that issue, I guess.
We do. It's an ongoing issue, and I understand where the rock climbers are coming from, but also councils need to protect kids who are, use the area at night for whatever they're getting up to. But even tourists in that respect as well, who just don't know the Australian landscape or topography or the danger of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I've got no other questions.
No, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
There was another question with regarding the existing stainless steel fencing in Eastern Reserve, and that the query that it seemed to be in good condition, so why are you replacing it?
Look, that particular area in Eastern Reserve, I might just look it up quickly.
Do you mind if I just jump in there, Rob? Because I've had a look at this. Sharon Cassidy, I'm Acting Director of Community Assets and Operations. I did have a look at that particular location because it came up a few weeks ago. All of the coastal area under the risk assessment we've done has been called to be upgraded with the new coastal fencing consistently. So we are obviously taking the opportunity where we can to upgrade it as we go. So the fence that's there, while in reasonable condition, is seen as higher risk in terms of not protecting, from fall, etc. It's easier to climb and so on. So that's the reason for replacing it and not leaving it in place. So when we come through and do the project, we'll take the opportunity to do the work that's been recommended in the risk assessment. And we can't do it all at the same time, but we're just working through.
Do we reuse that fencing somewhere else where it's not at risk?
Well, we could do, certainly it would be recycled if it's good quality materials, but whether the fence could actually be used, I'm not sure.
It's just I noticed there's a couple of people with their hands up. It's actually not a discussion at this point. So you've the normal process is that you make your comments and then there's a response from the applicant, and so that's that's how it stands. Is there anything else that you need to add, Rob, to the statements that you've made?
No, look, we look forward to receiving approval to proceed, and council's keen to sort of upgrade this asset for the community and residents. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I think that brings to a close. I mean, unless there's no other issues from the panel. Shake hands. No. Okay. I think that brings to a close all our presentations today. So so thank you everyone for actually taking the time to come and make representations at the meeting. We will take all that into consideration when we're making our deliberations, and we'll withdraw now to determine the applications, and the notifications of our decisions will be on the council website as soon as possible. So I'm formally closing this meeting at 1:45 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll leave and log in on the new meeting.
Are we going to do it straight away, or?
It's still live recording, so we do need to just wait for that to finish.
Mm-hmm.